Hi guys, hi Mermaid Junkies, how are you? I was thinking the other day, I don't know if some of you know, some of you that follow me know that I have recently, within the last 2 months, I had moved to Oklahoma. And it was not something that I wanted to do. Like, I really didn't want to move. I wanted to stay in California. And so I was reminded the other day because the kids and I were kind of chatting away and talking about, um, doing some things on Saturday to like tidy up the house and get a couple of things hung up on the walls, and it got me to thinking about something that I'd like to talk about, which is how a mermaid's castle reflects her self-love. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because I don't know if a lot of people talk about this, but the difference between, well, that maybe not necessarily that there's so much a difference, but that there's such a unison between our homes and the reflection that they have and ourselves. And so it's almost like what's going on in someone's personal life or internally within themselves is also sort of a reflection of how their house or home is. And I have a degree in interior design, but I also have one in the psychology behind interior design. And so that's why I wanted to kind of talk to you about a couple of little things, because I think that the parallel circumstances for that are very interesting. So, one of the things is, obviously we know that we're creators of our environment, right? So we're like the architects of our home. We're the architects of our being internally. And I wanted to go over a couple of things that would show and not show that maybe you might be lacking self-love within yourself and its reflection in your home. Now stay with me on this, because you might think that this is a little bit like, what? What? um, anyway, but we all know that colors are energy. Like, even in history, and when I studied psychology behind design, it's a very subjective kind of thing, and it has a lot to do with like heredity, also has to do with tradition and culture. So for an example, I'll talk to you about colors and how they represent. Like, I have always loved and been drawn to like really warm colors. And obviously, I think that now, after having gone to school for that, I understand why, because I'm very much an earthy person. So warm colors like golden colors or tans and browns and chocolates tend to make me feel very grounded and maternal. And I find it interesting because for the longest time, and we do change, over time. We do change our views and different styles and designs and stuff like that in as far as like our home. But it's really important to like really embrace your home, and or maybe not embrace would be the word, but it's really important to actually have things in your home that you really, really love. And the reason I say that is because I've noticed that over the years I've went and like I'll have a lot of things and I'll accumulate a lot of things, because being a designer, I'm always like making and creating, and new things come out and things of that nature. But I had noticed over the years that I would become, accumulate a lot of things. And so that started to represent to me baggage. Like, I started to feel more heavy. Like, in my transformation, I started to feel like very like overwhelmed. And I am one of those hodgepodge tchotchke kind of girls. But I've noticed as I've gotten older, I've kind of, what do you call it, like spare down quite a bit. And after we've moved so many times, because I think, I've been married, 24 years, and we've moved probably 19 times, because Sailor, we've always had to move a lot. So I've always had to learn and like recondition my thought processes for that, because that's been a very difficult thing for me. And I always thought like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm a gypsy at heart. But when I started to realize like, no, it really is starting to bother me as I've gotten older. And I don't know if it's because I'm just maturing or transforming, or if it's because it's something else. So I've been really diving into this lately. And anyway, so here's a couple of things that I've been thinking about. So I noticed that, it really is true. So here's a couple of little tips that if you wanted to learn about the psychology behind design. So I was designing my mom's house and redesigning it. She had purchased the home. It was after my grandmother. It was a family home, so it was my father's when he grew up. But obviously, my grandmother had lived there for all those years, and she had the same furniture in the house. And so when I was going through this process with her, because it's the 3 F's. It's feel, function, and form. And feel, function, form. Is that right? Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting my schooling, you guys. But anyway, so when we were going through the different things, it's very important to recognize that function, feel, and form. So have you ever done that? Like you've been in a home or been in an apartment or you've went somewhere, you've traveled somewhere, and you feel this certain peace about it, or there's this particular feeling that you gather that you're like, oh, I wish I could feel that when I got home or whatever. Well, there is some psychology behind that, why you may feel certain ways about certain things, because it is really true that the energy lies within the way things are functioning and the way that things are, the colors that stimulate your spiritual being and the things that help you to feel calm and relaxed. Because what blue now blue is supposed to be a very comforting and a very soothing and calming color, right? So a lot of times you'll notice in resorts or on cruises and stuff like that, if you've ever noticed, like a lot of times it'll be very soothing, like it'll be warms and taupey colors, grounding colors, or it'll be like blues and turquoises and greens, a light blues or aquamarine, that kind of thing. And that's because those are very calming colors to the spirit. However, because of tradition and things, for the longest time in my life, and I'm a mermaid, and I couldn't stand the color blue. Like anything blue I had no blue in my house, none whatsoever. And it was traced back to when I started doing this psychology behind it, when I was doing this school, is that like I grew up in a really dysfunctional home, like extremely dysfunctional. So, and my parents, both my mother and my father, loved the color blue. So every single room in our home, all of our dishes, our couches, our walls, the wallpaper, the floors, the carpet, do you get my drift? Like everything was blue, in some shade of blue. And so that to me didn't represent calmness to me. Like that represented chaos. And so I think until now I'm in my 40s, I completely love it. And I'm kind of coming back to that because I've had to recreate a new belief system about what the blue represented to me. Because I've noticed I always do feel really calm at the beach, and I feel really calm near water and stuff like that. So now there's several rooms in this house actually that have blue to them, like blue walls, and I find that really, really calming. So I'm kind of drawing more towards that now as I've grown. And you can also use this, the word is called priming. So priming is when you actually train the mind to think certain things. Like say I say, think of a fruit that's yellow, and you might think of a banana, but then you will also think of, and I'll say, okay, well now think of a flower that is yellow, and you would think of a daisy or a daffodil or something. But priming also has to do with coloring. So that's my example, was that my belief system growing up is that triggered emotions for me that didn't feel calm. So see how like tradition and culture has a lot to do with it. Whereas, like say for instance, my father, the priming example for my dad was, I knew that when I was redesigning their home that I couldn't use greens in their home, especially olive green. And this is interesting. And the reason is because my dad loathes that color. Like he hates it with a passion. But the reason that he hates it is because I went and did some psychological work with him, and it's because it reminds him of being in the war. Because all of their fatigues, everything was green, olive green, earthy brown colors. So he hates those colors. So see, he is reminded when he sees those colors that it reminds him of horrific things. So anyway, that's an interesting thing about priming, like for color. People can be primed to enjoy color and not enjoy certain color. Pay special attention to, I'll just give you a couple little tips, but when you walk into a room, if you walk into a room and there's blockage, like say you have something hanging on the back of the door, say it's like a coat hook or something, or you have hooks on the wall that kind of keep the door from opening completely, like that's one of the major reasons that people start to have like semi-claustrophobia, or they feel this sense of like this tenseness and they're not calm. It's because you need to have all of your doorways and your your open spaces, you need to have them very clear of anything that's functioning in your room. Like really pay attention to that. So if like you have the bed that you're like coming right in at the end of the footboard, like that could be a real issue. And a lot of the furniture, like start looking at things in your home and you don't have to do this like all together at once, but start like maybe with one room and start paring it down. Start looking at the different pieces of furniture and the different objects that you have. And so if you really don't like thoroughly enjoy and love those, and they mean something like tremendously special to you, then you might want to consider getting rid of them. And the more that you get rid of things, the more that you will be blessed with with that in return. And my mother always taught me that when I was young, just always freely give things away, because the universe will like doubly and triply reward you with things being given to you. Because it's not really about things, you guys, it's more about like the feel of things. It's about what each piece represents. Like my mom was having this is another thing, my mom was having a really difficult issue with she couldn't figure out why there was a particular piece of furniture. Like we would move the piece of furniture around and she still didn't like it. And I thought, okay, well, what if we paint it? What if we painted a certain color and you'll like that, because she lives like that real, beachy look, and washed out furniture and wicker and stuff. And I said, well, let's just paint it and distress it or whatever. But there was something about that table that she just couldn't stand. And I soon realized that it was something that the table represented to her, like something that reminded her when she was little in her home growing up, and she hated it. Like my mother does not like dark furniture, so that reminded her of like sadness and everything dark and dreary and depressing. So that to her, dark furniture represents depression to her. So why would you think that she would want to that's a clear indication of why she wouldn't want dark furniture in her home. So it's not about it's not about like, oh, it's just because it's not in the right room, or it's not in the right area, or it's not in the right particular place. It's because she did not like that piece of furniture when it came down to it. She hated the form of it, she hated the look of it, she did not like the error that it was built in, and she didn't like the color of it. And so she wasn't going to like the color when it was painted white. So it was time to let it go. Even though it was an heirloom piece, it was time to pass it on to someone else that would appreciate it and love it, and not carry that same type of energy with it. Does that make sense? So I think that's very interesting. So start paying attention to the things that you bring within your home, into your home, because they do have a lot of energy. Whether you want to believe that it's psychological or that it actually does generate energy, that it does have an impact on your spiritual well-being and the calmness and in the way that, and so do colors. So I thought that would be interesting to really re-examine certain things that are in your home. So I've been doing that, and I think that's the reason that I haven't wanted to put things up, because usually I'm the kind of girl that's like, being the designer in me, I'm like, oh, I know where this would go, and I can kind of get an idea of like, oh, that will work for that room. But I've just been wanting to reevaluate all of my belongings and stuff. Because if you have a lot of stuff and you hoard a lot of stuff, that means that you have a lot of things that you're hoarding in your mind and in your spirit, that you're keeping collected up there, and it's taking up space and energy so that you can't be exactly who you need to be. So just remember that that is a representation of what you're holding on to. If you can't let go of certain things, that's why you see these like home shows or shows where people hoard things. It's because, and you go, why were they get so overwhelmed or so emotional about stuff, because stuff represents things to us, and stuff represents feelings to us, because we put those on things, just like we put our emotions and feelings onto our animals and our pets. We also do that with things in our home. So just, I don't know, it's just a little thing that it was just something that came to me, and I thought, hey, I'll do a video on it. And I'll talk to you soon. I'm yours until my next swim. Ciao!